Cheers, brewers. It's my the Cooper's Hazy IPA. I've got it on tap now. The first one bought from the bottle, as you saw, but it's really good. I've had a couple tonight, and all I can say is for all those the Canadian club ads, where it's like the beer ads and whatnot, if you want a beer that doesn't taste like your common beer, this doesn't taste like that. It tastes like a UDL. It tastes like a post-mix drink. But in terms of what alcohol's mixed with it, as in what spirit, you know, it's beer mixed with hops, and you get a fruity alcoholic beverage, and so it's about 5.5% rather than the 6.5%, because I didn't put the extra malt in, and so because otherwise, if I'd had to already, I wouldn't be making this video. You're probably asking, not really, but you're probably asking, what am I doing tonight? Considering I have another Woolworths homebrew lager, and whoa, dextrose. Whoa, I know. Don't worry about this one. I'm actually just keg conditioning the all grain I brewed a couple of weeks ago. It's been in the keg. I didn't do any dry hop because I just thought, you know what, I just want a low hopped pale ale, because honestly my palate is going to be so fatigued after this keg that I'll just want to reset for a bit, and rather than sort of do another almost year on pilsners and lagers, just to be able to tolerate another hoppy pale ale or IPA, I just thought, you know what, that'll probably be a good segue into just easing my way back into the odd hoppy beer. So, but what I am going to do tonight is at least start the process of a home brewed alcohol-free beer. So that's why it's the cheapest possible ingredients. One is that it'll work, but I don't want it to cost too much, because I'm still going to have to use a lot of energy to actually get the fermented beer above boiling point of ethanol, which is alcohol. So I intended to do a slow boil after this is fermented, and then I'll have to do a forced carbonation. I don't want to add any more. The beer will be so clear, I don't want to then do another keg condition, so I'll just force carb it. It'll be fine, and it'll be 0% alcohol. And I only tend to make a mid-strength to see how it goes. And the reason why I only tend to make a mid-strength beer in terms of alcohol fermentation is because, one, if I make it any more than that, my losses, because I'm burning off the alcohol, are going to be a lot more. And also, the residual sweetness, a mid-strength, the residual sweetness is going to be lower because you're adding less sugar. And that's why I'm using dextrose, is because that's going to get 100% of that is going to get fermented to alcohol, which I can burn off. Whereas if I use dry malt extract, there's going to be a residual sweetness with no alcohol. There'll be bitterness to counter it, but there'll be no alcohol to counter it. So I'm worried really about sort of what level of sweetness is going to be left, and I don't want this non-alcoholic malt beverage that most people add to hot water and have a hot malt drink in winter time. Those baby boomers and above will reconcile with that and agree with it. So that's what my intention is with this, and I intend to use my Grainfather, which is my all-grain brewing kit, because it has really good temperature control, that I intend to slowly burn off the alcohol with. Of course I'm going to lose some volume, which is why I'm adding a little bit more water, but if I was to add 20 litres, if I was to make 20 litres of 5% beer, I'm going to lose 1 litre of volume. So I'm just going to make it mid-strength with 20 to 21 litres. And yeah, so anyway, you've seen me mix way too many extract brews. All I'm doing is dissolving it in boiling water. That's what you could hear at the start. And you've had me rub it on for long enough, and so next time you see me, I will be starting to boil off the alcohol. Before I go there, I am going to use, because I want the freshest yeast possible to be able to ferment as much of the sugars in here as possible, I'm going to use the US-05 that is in the all grain that I brewed the other day, and because it gives a very clean fermentation. And even though I had a hoppy-ish beer, if it gives a little hop flavour of Motueka and Cascade, you know, I challenge you to find anyone who's going to take offence to either of those two hops. That might give a remnant of a flavour through the beer, which I don't think will happen anyway, because yeast, I found, tend not to hold any hop profile, even when I've added, the only New England IPA I've ever made, which had 250 grams of dry hops, even that yeast didn't hold any hop flavour in the next brew I brewed with it. So, alright, yeah, until my alcohol boil off video and those new numbers that I put forward, yeah, happy brewing until then. Howdy brewers. So we're trying to do this alcohol-free beer. I have, well, it's 23 litres total, but I'll probably leave the last maybe 2 litres because there'll be some yeast at the bottom, and just the last little bit where I want to keep this as clean as possible with no yeast in it. Not that it'll really matter, but I just want to keep it, try and get it to be bright, really bright beer. So 21 litres. This is a 3.7% alcohol beer. So that is about, I'll do the sums, but it's about 3/4 of a litre of alcohol in this whole thing. So I will raise the temperature. So ethanol, alcohol boils at 75 degrees. I'm going to raise the temperature using my grain father to 80, at least 80, and maybe 85 because the thermostat's at the bottom. So I want to make sure that the top, because I don't want the ethanol to cool and then stay in solution for any longer than it needs to be, and that'll probably take a few hours at 80 to 85 degrees to boil off all the ethanol, because the boil off curve as the alcohol becomes less and less in solution is harder and harder to boil it off. So that's the intent. And so if I get 21 litres in there, once I'm at 20.25 litres roughly, I know that there's no alcohol left in the beer. But a little bit above that, I know that it's alcohol free is or low alcohol beers less than 0.5%. That's sort of what I'm aiming for anyway. This is an experiment. So I've just run through the star sand into this, and I will then now transfer the beer into the grain father and set the temperature for, I'm going to say 85, and let it run for a few hours. Okay, so at the moment it's 20 degrees, and we will there's 21 litres in here in the grain father, and we'll bring it up to 85 and leave it for a few hours until all that alcohol burns off. And that's why I've got the lid on, not just to sort of keep it sort of not exposed to different bugs and whatnot, also you'll be able to see the alcohol or the volatile start to burn off, and want to make sure that there's enough energy for it to all flow out. So we're at 85 or 86 now, and you can really see the condensation build up under the lid. And yeah, like I said, we'll leave that for probably
2 or 3 hours, and then that should have boiled off all the alcohol. Okay, brewers, so this has been, I let it go for about 3 hours, and we've lost about 3/4 of a litre of alcohol. So what we're going to do now is just drain it straight into our keg. Now, any yeast that may have come through, you'll have seen that I normally do a keg condition, but with this one, all the yeast will have been killed, so can't do a keg condition. And also, because I want to keep it 0 alcohol, if I decide to add a bit more yeast to this and then keg condition, it's going to create a bit more alcohol in order to get the carbonation in the beer. So I will force carb the beer. And also, I'm not going to put this, because this is at 85 degrees, I'm not going to put this in my keezer to cool down. I will put it in a separate my fermentation fridge and bring it down to temperature that way before I add it to the keezer to have a taste. Now, I do wonder what it's going to taste like, just because the smell's coming off it a little bit. They smell like hot beer, and so I'm wondering how this is going to taste. Anyway, it's not been an expensive investment. I think about $14 in ingredients, but we'll just see what sort of alcohol-free beer we end up with. So this will transfer now, and yeah, we'll see you at tasting. Cheers. Howdy, brewers. This is the alcohol-free beer. It's a little bit hazy, but really tight whitehead. It smells very sweet. It's gone a lot darker because it was under that heat for such a long time. If I was to do it again, I'd probably try and get it done as quickly as I could, so that way I'd maybe produce less colour, which of course means you're burning the sugar, which means it becomes sweeter, or caramelising the sugar, which means it becomes sweeter. Look, it's not bad. It tastes a little different to what I'm used to for beer. It tastes a bit like, in Australia there's a beer called Pure Blonde. Tastes a bit like that, which has it's a low carb beer. It's okay, I can drink a couple, but yeah. Because the sweetness increased when the sugars started to caramelise, the bitterness didn't increase any longer. Maybe if I dry hopped it with a hop that I perceive actually gives bitterness with a bit of a dry hop, is Galena hops, maybe that would help balance it out. But to me it's just a tiny bit too sweet and not quite bitter. Yeah. But the more I have, the easier it becomes to drink. Look, I probably will try this again. I'll look at everything that I did and see where I can tweak, and maybe even when I'm boiling the alcohol away, I might even throw some hops in, maybe like some Super Pride or something like that. Not much, just a couple of grams, but just enough to counter the sweetness that is going to be added. But I've got to say, something that you can do at home. If you want to make alcohol-free beer, yeah, just go with the extract first. Is all I'll say. Don't go and invest all that time in an all grain beer and then potentially make something that isn't quite right. All right. Well, until next time. Happy brewing.